On the night of our 5th wedding anniversary, I set the table, lit the candles, and waited on the couch for my husband to come home. As I scrolled through my feed to pass the time, a message notification popped up from his old classmate, Susie Cartman. Angela, thanks to Calvin's seed, I can finally have my own baby. The message came with a selfie, her grinning at the camera, holding up a medical slip in one hand, flashing a peace sign with the other. I touched my stomach, where our child was quietly growing. Calvin, did you really think everything in life would always go your way? I slipped the pregnancy report back into my bag, my hand instinctively resting on my stomach. To the little life inside me, I whispered an apology. I had planned to share the good news today. Calvin Leroy had longed for this child for so long. It seems he would rather that Susie Cartman be the one to give him a baby. That explained why he had been smiling at his phone so often as of late. His heart was already elsewhere. When I stayed silent, Calvin transferred money to me, just as he always did. In his eyes, I was nothing more than a dull, predictable housewife, someone who could be placated with cash. He lay down beside me, reaching out to pull me into his arms. His warm breath should have made me shiver with tenderness, but all I felt was cold. Once, I would have broken down, demanded to know why he was entangled with another woman, why he kept hurting his wife again and again. How could a man as educated as he was even consider something as absurd as giving his seed to another woman to have his own child? At this point, though, I just shifted slightly, avoiding his touch. He noticed and tried to soothe me. Honey, you've misunderstood. Susie and I are like siblings. Nothing else would ever happen between us. Her grandmother was my mentor. It was her dying wish that Susie have a child. With this child, she'll have someone to depend on. Once it's done, I'll never see her privately again, all right? I still did not answer. His patience snapped. His voice rose sharply. Angela Irwin, I'm talking to you. What's with that attitude? It's just an IVF procedure. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? With that, he threw off the blanket, yanked on his clothes, and stormed into the guest room. Before slamming the door shut, he spat out one last sentence. I could have kept this from you. The only reason I told you was out of respect. The door rattled with the force of his anger, leaving me sitting there in silence. I had prepared for this anniversary for so long, only to end up with this. Was it because I loved him too much? Was that why he dared to treat me this way? No matter how much I loved him, I could not accept my husband giving his seed to another woman. The next morning, Calvin left early. I did not have to ask where he went. I immediately called Ian Travis, my childhood friend. When we were kids, he used to trail behind me, insisting he would always protect me. When I told him I wanted a divorce and asked to borrow his private lawyer, Ian agreed instantaneously. These past few days, Calvin had either been coming home late or glued to his phone. At first, I thought he was busy with work. Yesterday, I finally understood. He was busy with Susie. That afternoon, I went to the hospital. After only a few words with the doctor, I said clearly, I want to terminate this pregnancy. The doctor's eyes widened in surprise. Didn't you go through so much just to have this child? I gave a bitter laugh but said nothing. Understanding dawned in the doctor's eyes. He immediately began making the arrangements. The procedure was quick, less than half an hour, and it was over. However, as soon as I stepped out of the hospital, I saw them. Calvin, carefully supporting Susie, guided her through the lobby. His face was full of worry, his voice tender in a way he never used with me. This was the same man who always raised his voice at me, yet spoke to her in the gentlest tone imaginable. Calvin, don't be so nervous, said Susie softly. The doctor already told us. I'm perfectly healthy and fully qualified for IVF. But IVF is so painful, Calvin's brows furrowed. The thought of you going through that hurts me. A blush rose on Susie's cheeks. It's just fate playing tricks on us. If I'd come back a few years earlier, we wouldn't even need IVF now. Her words stabbed at me. My chest tightened, and tears nearly spilled over. Just then Calvin noticed me. His frown deepened. Were you following me? I did not answer him. Instead, I fixed my gaze on Susie. She feigned irritation and chimed in sweetly. Calvin, with our kind of relationship, Angela would surely understand. Why would she ever need to follow us? She thought I was the same woman who swallowed every insult in silence? I let out a quiet laugh. If you and Calvin are planning to have a child together, what does that have to do with me? The way I see it, you two are the real husband and wife. Calvin's face turned ashen. What are you saying? I told you before, Susie and I are like siblings. However, fresh from surgery, my body would not let me stand long. A dull ache spread across my abdomen, and I had no energy left to argue. I turned, intent on walking away. Susie suddenly stepped forward, blocking me. Angela, wait. We're nearly done with the checkup, so why don't we all go together? Otherwise, I'd feel guilty, like you're angry with me. I waved her off impatiently, giving her the lightest push. She collapsed dramatically to the ground, clutching herself and crying out in pain. Panic flashed in Calvin's eyes. He shoved me hard and barked. Are you insane? Don't you realize Susie is trying to have a baby? Without another word, he scooped her into his arms and rushed off. Watching their retreating figures, I felt no regret. If she was going to have a child, what about me? The day Susie reappeared in his life, I already knew our marriage was finished. Back home, my phone buzzed. Susie had updated her social media feed. A photo of Calvin's face, taken from the angle of a doting girlfriend. The caption read, How lucky I am. After all these years, you've always been there whenever I'm hurt. Comments flooded in beneath the post. Wow, our big boss is such a softie at heart. Of course, childhood sweethearts always get special treatment. So you finally chose him to have your baby? Congrats. Not long after, Calvin himself commented, "Don't start rumors. I don't want Angela upset. Susie and I are only doing IVF." Someone quickly replied, "Please. Everyone knows about your feelings for Susie. If someone hadn't meddled, you two would have been together ages ago." His so-called friends had always believed I was the one who came between them. The truth? 5 years ago, Susie was the one who broke things off so she could study abroad. During Calvin's darkest days, it was I who stayed by his side. I typed out a reply. If they're destined to be together, then they will be. Don't worry, the day is coming soon. Then I posted the abortion procedure receipt on social media. The caption was, "Baby, don't blame me for being heartless. Someone else is going to have your father's child too." In less than a minute, my feed erupted, likes, comments, shares. However, they were all from my side of the circle. Not a single one of Calvin's friends reacted. Moments later, my brother called. Then my father-in-law. Then Calvin again and again. I did not pick up any of them. My brother finally sent a message. "Ian told me everything. You've just gone through an abortion. I'll ask him to pick you up. You need someone to take care of you for now." I packed lightly, dragging my suitcase toward the door. However, before I could step out, the lock rattled violently, and Calvin burst through the door. Calvin's face was flushed red with fury as he grabbed my wrist in a crushing grip, his voice venomous. "So just because I said I'd donate seed to Susie, you went and had an abortion behind my back? Are you insane? You didn't even tell me you were pregnant. Do you have any idea how long I've been waiting for this child?" His words made my stomach churn with disgust. Even at this point, he thought I would still be willing to bear his child? I ignored him and moved to step past, but he yanked me back, refusing to let go. "I already promised you, once we have the baby, I'll cut ties with Susie completely. Isn't that enough?" He kept testing the limits of my patience, and for the first time, I realized just how shameless a person could be. I could not hold back anymore, and I slapped his face hard. "I don't care what you promise. I want a divorce. You've been desperate to be with Susie anyway, haven't you? A lawyer will be in touch." With that, I walked away from the house I had lived in for 5 years, never once looking back. Behind me, Calvin's furious roar echoed down the hall. "If you walk out that door, don't you ever think of coming back." How laughable. I would never regret this decision. I hailed a cab and headed to the wealthiest neighborhood in Oaklandia City. When I arrived, Ian was already waiting at the gate. His brows were knitted tight with worry. I told him about Susie asking Calvin to father her child, and Ian was livid. "I knew it, he's scum. Shameless and filthy. Don't worry about the rest, I'll handle it." Back in the presence of someone who had truly cared for me, I felt a warmth I had not felt in years. My defenses crumbled, and I broke down, sobbing in his arms. 5 years ago, I married Calvin against everyone's advice. My parents, my brother, my relatives, my friends, no one supported me. Even Ian, my childhood friend, had called repeatedly to beg me not to marry him. Back then, I thought they all looked down on Calvin because the Leroy family was nothing more than nouveau riche. I was determined to prove my choice was right. I was wrong. 5 years of youth wasted. At last I woke up. No matter what he did next, I was never going back. However, Calvin refused to accept a divorce. He messaged, "Fine, we can divorce. But I need to talk to you face to face." I messaged back. "At this point, there's nothing left to say. If you won't sign, I'll take you to court." His reply was infuriating. "All this fuss over nothing. Susie just wants a child, that's all. It's not like she's ruining our marriage." Every time her name came up, he painted Susie as some innocent victim. No matter what she did, in his eyes, she was always to be forgiven, always to be understood. When I was pregnant, he spent his days glued to the phone with her. Even on our anniversaries, the moment Susie called, he would drop everything and run to her side. On our 5th wedding anniversary, the worst of all, he spent the entire day escorting her through medical exams for IVF. On every holiday, he would prepare a gift for her too. If I got upset, he would lecture me. "Come on, she's had it rough abroad. Her reputation's been ruined, and she can't even find a decent husband now. After everything we've been through, if I don't take care of her, who will?" Looking back at this moment, I realized, those so-called happy days with Calvin only existed in the first 2 years of our marriage. That was when Susie had gone abroad, chasing after someone more powerful, and had almost no contact with him. Me? I had poured all my love, all my devotion into him, turning him from the one who once had to give, into the one who only knew how to take. Eventually, Calvin proposed to me. "Are you serious?" Tears of joy streamed down my face. "I've thought it through," he said. "The days I've spent with you have been the happiest of my life. I want that happiness to last forever." However, like all beautiful dreams, this one eventually shattered. When I did not respond, Calvin called me directly. "Angela, just come back. I'll make them apologize, and we'll put this behind us. Don't make a fuss." "Will Susie apologize?" I asked. Yes. He sounded relieved, even cheerful. "She said as long as it makes you happy, she's willing to apologize." "Fine. Tomorrow then." Since she was so eager to make me happy, I decided I would enjoy it to the fullest. The next day, Calvin came to pick me up. Sitting in the passenger seat was Susie. She blinked innocently and said, "I get carsick, Angela. You don't mind, do you?" In the past, I would have snapped back at her, and we would have fought. Not anymore. I simply smiled faintly, said nothing, and slid into the back seat. At the restaurant, Calvin's friends looked like they had swallowed nails as they mumbled their apologies. "Angela, we were wrong. We shouldn't have said those things." One by one, they apologized. Thinking the matter settled, Calvin urged us to sit and eat. However, I stayed standing. "There's still one more person, isn't there?" My gaze landed on Susie. She picked up a glass of juice and walked over, her voice soft and pitiful. "Angela, I know you don't like me. After all, who could accept their husband's first love always being around? I understand. I've wronged you and I'm sorry." Calvin's face softened instantly, his voice full of concern. "All right, that's enough. Angela won't hold it against you. Everything's out in the open now. Go sit down, don't overexert yourself. You're not in good health." Then he turned to me. "See? I kept my word. Now let's stop this nonsense." I just sat there, quietly watching. "Say something, Angela. Don't just sit there in silence again." Before I could answer, the doors burst open. Ian strode in, sharp in a tailored suit, every step radiating authority. "What are you doing here?" I stared at him in surprise. His voice dripped with disdain. "I wanted to see firsthand what kind of garbage they'd spew at you." "Watch your mouth, Ian. Don't think we're afraid of you," Calvin shouted, instinctively shielding Susie behind him. Ian smirked. "I'm not even here for you. Why so nervous?" He casually pulled out a chair, sat down, and swept his eyes over the room with bored indifference. They claimed they were not afraid, but none of them dared speak up. "Tell you what, Mr. Leroy," Ian said lazily. "If you're really not afraid, should I go ahead and pull all my funding from Leroy Group?" Calvin's face flushed crimson, his lips moving soundlessly before he finally forced out a few words. "What do you want? We're all adults here. Mixing personal grudges with business isn't wise." Calvin tried to steady his voice. "Besides, no matter how much I fight with my wife, it's still between us. It's not for outsiders like you to meddle." Ian's eyes darkened, and a slow smile tugged at his lips. "Your wife? You're about to be divorced, and you still call her that? The shamelessness is impressive." Ian leaned back unfazed. "I didn't come to waste words with you. I came to deliver a gift." Ian snapped his fingers, and his assistant walked in, placing a thick envelope on the table. The sound of it hitting the wood echoed in the silent room. "Open it," Ian said, his voice deceptively calm. Calvin hesitated, glancing at Susie then at me. His bravado was waning, replaced by a nervous twitch in his jaw. Slowly, he reached for the envelope and tore it open. Photos spilled out. Not just photos. Documents. Emails. Hotel receipts. The color drained from Calvin's face so fast I thought he might faint. Susie leaned over, her eyes widening in horror as she saw the contents. "What is this?" Calvin whispered, his voice trembling. "Proof," Ian said, leaning forward. "Proof that your platonic relationship with Miss Cartman here started long before she supposedly returned from abroad. Proof that you've been funneling company funds into her personal accounts for the past 3 years. And proof," he paused for effect, his gaze locking onto Susie, "that the medical slip for IVF was forged." A gasp rippled through the room. Calvin's friends stared at him, then at Susie, their expressions a mix of shock and betrayal. "Forged?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I looked at Susie. "You lied about needing IVF." Susie's face crumpled. "No, it's not like that. I just wanted to be sure." "Sure of what?" Ian scoffed. "Sure that you could trap him? Sure that you could manipulate him into giving you everything you wanted?" He pointed a finger at Calvin. "You think you're so smart, Calvin. But you're just a pawn in her game. She's been playing you from the start." Calvin looked at Susie, his eyes filled with confusion and hurt. "Susie, is this true?" She burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. "I did it for us, Calvin. I knew she would never let you go. I had to do something." "So you lied about needing my seed? You lied about not being able to conceive naturally." Calvin's voice rose, cracking with emotion. I just wanted a baby with you. Is that so wrong?" she wailed. "It is when you destroy a marriage to get it." I stood up, my own anger finally boiling over. "It is when you manipulate a man into betraying his wife. It is when you make a mockery of something as sacred as bringing a life into this world." The room fell silent again. Calvin looked at me, then back at the photos scattered on the table. He picked one up, a picture of him and Susie entering a hotel room 2 years ago. 2 years. He muttered. We were happy then, Angela. I thought we were happy." "We were," I said, tears stinging my eyes. "Or at least I was. But clearly you weren't. You were already building a life with her behind my back." "No." Calvin shook his head violently. "It wasn't like that. It was just comfort. She needed me. I couldn't say no. And now?" Ian asked coldly. "Do you still want to defend her? Do you still want to claim she's innocent?" Calvin didn't answer. He just stared at the table, his shoulders slumping in defeat. Ian stood up, buttoning his jacket. "My lawyers will be in touch regarding the divorce, Calvin. And regarding the misappropriation of funds. I suggest you get a good lawyer yourself. You're going to need one. He offered me his arm. Shall we go, Angela? I looked at Calvin one last time. He looked small, broken. The man I had loved for 5 years was gone, replaced by a stranger I didn't recognize. Yes, I said, taking Ian's arm. Let's go. As we walked out, I heard Susie's frantic voice behind us. Calvin, please. Don't listen to them. I love you. But Calvin didn't answer. He just sat there, staring at the ruins of his life. The days that followed were a blur. I moved into Ian's guest house. A sprawling estate that felt more like a fortress than a home. But it was safe. It was quiet. And most importantly, it was far away from Calvin. Ian was true to his word. His legal team descended on Calvin like a pack of wolves. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. With the evidence Ian had provided, Calvin didn't stand a chance. But the legal battle wasn't the only storm brewing. The revelation about the misappropriated funds sent shockwaves through the business community. Leroy Group's stock plummeted. Investors pulled out. Calvin's father, a man who had built the company from scratch, suffered a heart attack upon hearing the news. I visited him in the hospital once. He looked frail, aged 10 years in a week. Angela, he rasped, reaching for my hand. I'm sorry. I raised a fool. It's not your fault, Dad, I said gently, squeezing his hand. I still called him Dad. Old habits died hard. He ruined everything, he whispered, tears leaking from his eyes. For a woman like that. I didn't know what to say. There was nothing to say. Calvin had made his bed, and now he had to lie in it. Meanwhile, Susie wasn't going down without a fight. She started a smear campaign online, painting herself as the victim of a jealous wife and a ruthless tycoon. She posted videos crying, claiming I had forced her to have an abortion, a twisted version of the truth, claiming Ian was threatening her. Some people believed her. The internet loves a good victim story, but most saw through her lies. Ian's team released snippets of the evidence, just enough to discredit her without compromising the legal case. One afternoon, I found Ian in his study, staring at a computer screen with a dark expression. What's wrong? I asked, walking in. He looked up, his face softening slightly when he saw me. Just reading some of the garbage she's posting. It's infuriating. Don't read it, I said, sitting down in the chair opposite him. It doesn't matter. We know the truth. It matters to me, he said fiercely. She's dragging your name through the mud, Angela. I won't let her get away with it. Ian, I said softly. You've already done so much. You saved me. He looked at me, his gaze intense. I didn't save you, Angela. You saved yourself. You walked away. That took courage. I had help? I smiled faintly. He stood up and walked around the desk, leaning against the edge in front of me. I've always wanted to help you, Angela. You know that, right? My heart skipped a beat. There was something in his voice, something deeper than friendship. Ian, I know, he held up a hand. Not now. It's too soon. You need time to heal. But I want you to know, I'm not going anywhere. I'll wait as long as it takes. Tears welled up in my eyes again, but this time, they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude, of hope. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. I walked out of the courthouse a free woman. Calvin was there, looking gaunt and disheveled. He tried to approach me, but Ian stepped in front of me, his presence a solid wall. Angela, Calvin called out, his voice hoarse. Please, just 1 minute. I stopped. I looked at Ian, who nodded slightly, stepping aside but staying close. What is it, Calvin? I asked, my voice steady. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, he mumbled, looking at his shoes. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I am. I lost the best thing that ever happened to me. You did, I agreed. But you didn't just lose me, Calvin. You lost yourself. You lost your integrity. Your family's trust. He flinched. I know. I'm trying to fix things. With Dad. With the company. Good luck, I said. And I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't wish him harm. I just didn't want him in my life anymore. Are you happy? He asked, glancing at Ian. I'm getting there, I said. Goodbye, Calvin. I turned and walked away, Ian falling into step beside me. The sun was shining, the air was crisp. For the first time in a long time, the future looked bright. We got into Ian's car, and he turned to me with a smile. Ready to go home? Yes, I said, returning his smile. Let's go home. Life with Ian was different. It was calm, secure. There were no hidden messages, no secret phone calls. Just open communication and mutual respect. I started working at his company, helping with their charitable foundation. It gave me a sense of purpose I had been missing. I threw myself into the work, organizing galas, visiting shelters, meeting people who had faced far worse than I had and survived. One evening, after a successful fundraiser, Ian and I were sitting on the terrace, watching the stars. You were amazing tonight, he said, handing me a glass of wine. Thank you, I said, feeling a blush warm my cheeks. I couldn't have done it without your support. You underestimate yourself, he said softly. You have a natural gift for this. People are drawn to you. Your kindness, it shines through. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered on my cheek, sending a shiver down my spine. Angela, he whispered. Is it still too soon? I looked into his eyes that had watched over me since we were children. eyes that had seen me at my best and my worst and loved me all the same. No, I whispered back. It's not too soon. He leaned in and kissed me. It was gentle at first, tentative. Then, as I responded, it deepened, filled with a passion that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. In that kiss, I found not just love, but healing. I found a promise of a future where I would be cherished, not taken for granted, where I would be a partner, not a prop. A year passed. Ian and I were inseparable. We traveled, we worked, we laughed. It was the life I had always dreamed of, but never thought I would have. But the past has a way of resurfacing when you least expect it. One day, I received a letter. The handwriting was unfamiliar, shaky. It was from Susie. I stared at the envelope for a long time, debating whether to open it. Finally, curiosity won out. Angela. It read. I know you hate me. You have every right to. I'm writing this from a hospital bed. The doctors say I don't have much time left. My breath caught in my throat. Dying? The IVF. It wasn't just a lie about needing it. I really did want a baby. But I also knew I was sick. Ovarian cancer. The doctors told me years ago I might never conceive. I thought if I could just get pregnant, maybe God would let me live. Maybe a life for a life. I read on, my heart pounding. I used Calvin. I know that now. I played on his guilt, his old feelings. I made him believe he was saving me, when really, I was dragging him down with me. I was selfish. I was scared. And now I'm alone. Calvin won't see me. My friends have abandoned me. You were the only one who ever saw me clearly, Angela. Even when I was hurting you, you saw the desperation. Tears blurred my vision. Not of sympathy exactly, but of a strange, hollow sadness. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know. I wanted someone to know the truth before I go. I am sorry, Angela. For everything. I put the letter down, my hand trembling. What is it? Ian asked, walking into the room and seeing my face. I handed him the letter. He read it in silence, his expression hardening, then softening into pity. She's dying. Apparently, I said. It explains a lot. The desperation. The erratic behavior. It doesn't excuse it, Ian said firmly. But it's tragic. Do you think I should go see her? I asked. Ian looked at me, surprised. Do you want to? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to scream at her. Part of me just feels sad for her. Whatever you decide, I'm with you, he said, squeezing my shoulder. In the end, I went. Not for her, but for me. To close the book completely. The hospital room was sterile and cold. Susie lay in the bed, a shadow of her former self. Her skin was pale, her eyes sunken. When she saw me, a flicker of surprise crossed her face. Angela. Her voice was a rasp. You came. I got your letter, I said, standing at the foot of the bed. Thank you, she whispered. I didn't think you would. Why did you really write it, Susie? I asked. To clear your conscience. Maybe, she admitted. And, because I wanted to tell you, Calvin really did love you. In his own messed up way. He fought it, you know. In the beginning. He kept saying he couldn't hurt you. But I knew which buttons to push. It doesn't matter now, I said. He made his choices. I know, she coughed, wincing in pain. He visits sometimes. He stands in the doorway and looks at me like he hates me. And I deserve it. Susie, I said, feeling a sudden wave of exhaustion. I can't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I don't hate you anymore. I pity you. She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. That's fair enough. I turned to leave. Angela, she called out softly. Be happy. You deserve it. I didn't look back. I walked out of the hospital and into the sunshine, taking a deep breath of fresh air. It was over. 2 years later. Ian and I were married in a small, intimate ceremony in the garden of his estate. My parents were there, beaming. My brother gave a toast that made everyone cry. Even Calvin's father sent a gift, a beautiful crystal vase with a note wishing us happiness. We decided to start a family. This time, there were no secrets, no hidden agendas. Just love and hope. When I found out I was pregnant, I cried. Not tears of fear or uncertainty, like the first time, but tears of pure, unadulterated joy. Ian was ecstatic. He painted the nursery himself, built the crib, read every parenting book he could find. One afternoon, I was walking through the park, heavily pregnant, enjoying the autumn breeze. I saw a man sitting on a bench feeding pigeons. He looked older, grayer. His clothes were worn. It was Calvin. I stopped, my hand resting on my belly. He looked up and saw me. His eyes widened, then dropped to my stomach. A myriad of emotions crossed his face. Shock, pain, regret, and finally resignation. He stood up slowly. Angela. Hello, Calvin, I said. You look wonderful, he said quietly. Glowing. I am, I said simply. I'm happy. I can see that, he nodded. Is it Ian's? Yes, I said. He swallowed hard. I'm happy for you. Really, thank you, I said. How are you? Getting by, he shrugged. Working at a small firm. Dad's retired. The company. Well, it's not what it was, but we're rebuilding. That's good, I said. Susie died, he said suddenly. Last year. I know, I said. I went to see her before the end. He looked surprised. You did. She never told me. There was a lot she didn't tell you, I said gently. But it's in the past now, Calvin. Let it go. He nodded slowly, tears filling his eyes. I try. Every day. I have to go, I said. Ian is waiting for me. Right, he said, stepping back. Go. Go be happy, Angela. I walked away, leaving him on the bench with his pigeons. I walked towards the parking lot where Ian's car was waiting. He saw me coming and got out, hurrying over to help me. Are you okay? You were gone a while. I'm fine, I smiled, taking his hand. Just running into an old ghost. A ghost? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Someone who used to haunt me, I said, looking back at the park one last time. But he can't hurt me anymore. Because I'm living in the light now. Ian kissed my forehead. And I'll make sure you stay there. We got into the car and drove home. Our daughter, Lily, was born on a snowy winter morning. She had Ian's eyes and my smile. She was perfect. Holding her in my arms, I realized that everything I had gone through, the pain, the betrayal, the loss, had led me to this moment. To this perfect, beautiful life. Ian proved to be the father Calvin never could have been. He was present, loving, and fiercely protective. We continued our work with the foundation, now focusing on helping women and children in crisis. We named a wing of the new shelter after my grandmother, the woman who had taught me to be strong. Years passed. Lily grew into a bright, kind young woman. We told her stories about her Uncle Ian, saving her mom, though we softened the edges of the truth for her innocent ears. One day, when Lily was in high school, she came home with a troubled expression. Mom, she said, there's a girl at school. Her dad left her mom for another woman. She's really hurting. My heart ached for that unknown girl. Be kind to her, Lily. Listen to her. Let her know she's not alone. I will, she promised. But why do people do that? Why do they hurt the people they're supposed to love? I looked at Ian, who was sitting across the room reading a book. He looked up and smiled at me, a smile full of love and shared history. Sometimes, I said to Lily, people are broken. They don't know how to love properly because they don't love themselves. And sometimes they make terrible mistakes thinking it will fix them. But it never does. Did Dad ever make mistakes like that? She asked hesitantly. She knew Calvin wasn't her biological father, but she knew of him as my ex-husband. He did, I said honestly. But he also taught me a valuable lesson. What's that? That I am strong enough to survive anything, I said. And that true love, the kind that lasts, isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about showing up. It's about respect. It's about choosing each other every single day. Lily hugged me. I'm glad you chose Dad. Me too, sweetheart, I said, holding her tight. Me too. Epilogue. On our 20th wedding anniversary, Ian and I returned to the restaurant where he had confronted Calvin and Susie all those years ago. It had changed owners, the decor was different, but the memory was still vivid. We sat at a table by the window, holding hands. Can you believe it's been 20 years? Ian asked, his eyes crinkling at the corners. It feels like a lifetime ago, I said. And also like yesterday. Do you ever wonder? What would have happened if I hadn't walked in that day? He asked. I probably would have walked out eventually, I said. But it would have been harder. You gave me the strength to cut the cord cleanly. You always had the strength, Angela, he insisted. I just reminded you of it. A waiter approached our table with a bottle of champagne. Compliments of the gentleman at the bar, he said. We looked over. Sitting at the bar, alone, was an elderly man. He raised his glass to us. It was Calvin. He looked old, frail. But there was a peace in his eyes that hadn't been there before. I looked at Ian. Should we? It's up to you, Ian said. I raised my glass in return. A silent acknowledgement. A silent forgiveness. Not for what he did, but for who he had become. Just a part of my history, a stepping stone to my destiny. Calvin nodded, smiled sadly, and turned back to his drink. To us, Ian said, clinking his glass against mine. To us, I whispered. And to the life we built. We drank the champagne, the bubbles dancing on our tongues. Outside, the city lights twinkled like diamonds. The past was a ghost, fading into the night. The future was ours, bright and beautiful and full of love. And that was all that mattered. The end.